Welcome in, everyone. This video is part of our Unusual Whales educational series. Today we're going to look at the flow feed, kind of how to set it up with filters, and I just want to do some flow reads as well too. So the flow is going to be from 10/31/2025. This is going to be very beginner friendly, so again, if you're new to Unusual Whales and or new to kind of the option flow, this is a good video to kind of just start out with. So we're going to look at the filters. I'm going to kind of do some little live flow reads here throughout the feed. And right now, again, great time to try Unusual Whales if you haven't used it. Halloween sale here until the 3rd. You get 30% off your platform plans for up to a year. And if you are watching this video and it's past that, I do also have a 10% off discount code that you can use whenever as well, which will be posted in the bio. But I'm going to show you how to get to the flow feed, show you how I set everything up. So let's get started here. So flow feed, this is kind of my big area. This is just going to capture all the flow that comes in during the day here. So flow data, and it's just under that flow data here, flow feed. It's going to bring you here. So today I'm going to show everybody kind of how I do the ask side filters here. So Unusual Whales does have some built-in filters here, some preset filters. I build my own because you can customize them however you want. So let's start out here. So again, ask side is presumably buying the contracts. Again, just because it's at the ask doesn't mean that, but this is why I like to narrow it down. So focusing on the ask, and you can see I have all my other filters saved in here as well. So starting up at the top here, obviously this is how you can search for tickers. If you don't want to see any tickers, you would just put that minus and you would take out any tickers you want here. Time, you can filter it however you want. You want to go just the day before, last 7 days, last 30 days, however you want to do that there. So chain activity, this is the big spot here. So ask side, I set this at 0.7. And if you have questions about any of this too, you just come over here and kind of scroll over that question mark. It's going to give you an explanation of a lot of this stuff as well. I'm just going to kind of touch on it a little bit here. So 0.7. Why am I doing 0.7? I want to see at least 70% of that chain being ask side flow. Because if you just take off that 0.7, you're going to see a lot of flow where it's like 40% ask, 40% bid, and you're just going to get a lot of kind of congestion here that you don't need to look at. And again, you can set this up however you want. I like 70%. I always say 0.7, but I like that 70%. It's a good starter. You don't miss a ton of flow, but you will narrow out the kind of the junky flow here. So again, you can adjust that here. Bid side would be for your bid side filters. Skew, again, here. This is just, I don't use this here. So it's just that percentage of the trades at or above the ask here. I just leave those filters wide open, obviously, on my ask side one. Your option type here, so you can decide, like if you were just looking for puts, you can just hide your calls and it'll just show you your puts on the day there. I like to leave both open. I like to get a big view of the market. Self-explanatory there. Here, so what I like to do is I like to separate my stocks from ETF or indexes, just so it's a little easier to see the different I don't need a bunch of SPY calls coming in with my normal flow here. So like here, I would just have it. I have my ETF flow list and ADRs. You can keep it on. You can fully customize this however you want. These are just some good starter filters that I like to use. I usually sit on this most of the day. So your expiration dates. Again, if you're just looking for a certain expiration as well too, you can always do that there as well. Premium. So filtering premiums is really, really, really big. So keep in mind, Unusual Whales, any trade that comes in on the flow feed here, so like let's get rid of the 90,000. It's going to bring up this every transaction that comes into the market. Do you think we care about a weekly meta call next week that's 600 contracts for 5,000 on 44,000 volume? Probably not. This is probably not a big whale here that we care about. And you just see the small little premiums. So a 2K whale, we don't care about that. 27 days out, a 3-cent NVIDIA call, we don't care about that. So this is just kind of narrowing down the stocks here. So I I like starting out at 90,000. If the day's a little slower, you can always bump it down to like 40, 50,000. But you don't want to get too much on the flow feed where it's just popping and you get kind of, I don't want to say distracted, but you might get a little kind of flustered with everything coming in. It comes in quick, everything's live. So, I mean, you're getting flow coming in here every couple minutes here for the most part. So you just don't want to get overwhelmed. So I like 90,000 for a good starting point. Size, I'm looking for sizable trades. 500 I think is a good starting point there. You want to get volume coming in. You need to be able to exit that stock. So again, like if you did 10,000 only, you're going to narrow down a lot of stocks, but you're going to miss out on a lot of potential stocks. Like now, if I'm looking at this right away, I mean, like the PDD and Maricalls stick out to me right away here. So, I mean, you're getting less opportunity, but you can really see things stick out quicker there. But again, you can kind of adjust that how you want. I like 500, just a good starting point there. And even just looking at the flow feed here with that 500, you don't get a ton of flow where it's overwhelming, but you get a good handful of flow to look through for the day. Just because when you're looking through that flow, I'd say about 80% of that flow is questionable or just not actionable. So what you're doing essentially here is just trying to knock out that bad flow that doesn't make sense. So everything else here I kind of just leave pretty much open here. It's just that premium size I'm looking for. Spot, that's just going to be what your spot fill is going to be at here. Days to expiration, volume, open interest, just different other data in here as well. Out of the money, I'm only looking for out of the money contracts. Again, you can adjust this however you want. Once you get deep in the money, the flow starts to get kind of arbitragey. It's not very actionable at that point. So at the money or out of the money are kind of my main choices there. Greeks I leave wide open here. So your flag type. So these are your kind of rules that are coming in here. So I keep sweeps on. Crosses, I do keep cross trades on just so I can kind of see it. I'm not going to trade a cross trade. Cross trades are junk. Floor trades, these are just trades coming in from the floor of an exchange from the floor trader's personal account. Normal trades, self-explanatory. Extra, and again, all of this is customizable. China, volatility, dividend, you can knock all that out. So this is your other area here where you want to pay attention here. So you got unusual trades. These are just kind of their default filters there. I like volume bigger than open interest. You're looking for opening trades essentially. If that volume isn't bigger than that open interest, so an example right here, NVO, the 11,747.5 puts here, 964 contracts against that 24. Well, we'll come up a little earlier in the day. I just want to see if I can find a good one to show everybody. Here we go. So like this one, it's multi-leg, so of course. Good example right here. So like the GPN, this would not get flagged, or it would get lost in the other flow as well, but GPN, so like you can see we had 4,240 contracts come in here. So only about 400 contracts traded there on the day here. So you can see that a little bit earlier there. So that essentially is, where did we go here? GPN. So that volume here is greater than that open interest. Self-explanatory there. And out of the money only, again, how I like to have it. And you can put the opening trades on. I usually leave it off. I try to get as much data as I can without overwhelming myself. If you just want single leg contracts only, again, you can do that. I do like to see multi-leg trades just to see if there's any other action coming around different names as well. Aggregated trades. So these are trades when they're coming in on the flow. These are assumed to be with each other, and you can just click on these little stack things here, and it's going to show you that trade here. Typically, I don't click on this. I look at that the full flow feed here, which we'll touch on here in a bit, and then I just kind of leave everything else here. And then if you want to save your filters, you would just come up here, save it, and then it would allow you to name it. I don't want to override mine at all. But let's kind of look at the flow feed here, and we're going to look at some of the main things to kind of look for and what I'm looking for. So we're going to start all the way down here at the beginning of the day. So again, this is fully customizable as well. Your columns here, you can come over here, adjust those, you can move them, set them up however you want. I kind of just leave it default pretty much, hide whatever you don't want, etc. like that. So here's our flow feed. I'm Central Standard Time, so everything kind of coming in for me. We're gonna go next here and start on the day. Whoops. Okay, here we go here. So we're gonna start at 8:30. I'm just gonna kind of move up and just pick out some flow, and you can kind of see how I read it. It's not in real time, obviously. The market's going to be closed right now on a Saturday at 6:30. So yeah, let's just kind of look at some flow that's sticking out. I'll kind of touch on what I don't like about the flow, or why I'm just passing over stuff, because I do pass over a lot of flow as well. So right away, typically I'm not a fan of trading within like the first like 5-10 minutes. Just because you have a lot going on, IV can be a little skewed if a stock gapped up, etc. So we're going to start at 8:40-ish here and just kind of move our way up. So right away, what I'm looking at, the columns you're paying attention to. Your time column, obviously your ticker, comes with the strike, your expiration, bid ask, your spot, size, premium, volume, open interest. And I always keep an eye on earnings and kind of any rules, and your IV column. Your three main ones will be IV, your spot, your bid ask, and your time. Those are the three main ones you will need to pay attention to when you're reading the flow feed. So coming in here, I'm at 8:49, and this is all multi-leg stuff here. And I mean, you can hover over everything. It's going to pretty much tell you everything about the stock, or even if you hover over the columns, it's going to tell you pretty much everything you need to know. They make it very dummy proof. So right away, and when I see like the arrows here for multi-leg, I just kind of ignore that. I don't waste my time on something like that. So right away, I see these QUBTs coming in. My eyes are coming over to that size. I want to see how big that size of the trade is. Some volume on it. Or that's going to be the volume for the full day here, so it's the end of the day. So it would be 6,300 at the time against open interest. So these kind of are interesting to me. They obviously expired yesterday, so I know they don't overlap earnings. Now, the one thing I don't like right away is that spot. This is essentially almost a mid-fill here, because that's coming in at 20, and that bid ask is 15 to 25. So it is still interesting. Let's take a peek at it. So this will bring you to like I call it the volume chart. So here is your flow, how it comes in, and this is why, I'm going to come back one more time. This is why I don't just look at this, because it is going to show you a lot of the info that you do need here, but I like to see how that other volume looks as well. So I know at the time there were 7,500 contracts traded there, and you know it's an opening contract just based off that open interest. Math is there. So I always click on that candle. I'm going to look at that full flow feed here. So what I'm looking at is, and this is a good example of flow that won't match your criteria but makes a run. So when this flow comes in here, you notice how that IV drops. So this is going to catch my eye. I'm looking at that IV, I'm looking at that spot price, the bid ask, and the time here. So that IV drops. So right away, I'm thinking, okay, well, the IV is dropping on these, but let's follow this up and look at that spot. 19, so 40 contracts coming at 19, not a huge premium there on that where it's going to kind of throw off the full trade, but I'm watching that IV because it drops and then we pop again here. And we're staying in at 20, staying in at 20, 19 again there, IV drops again. And then at the end here, so if I'm reading this at the end, and I know that spot is still coming in at 20, it's starting to kind of decrease here, and that IV's been kind of all over. In real time, I'm going to probably pass on something like this because that timing is all similar. IV's dropping. This does not match my rules. Now if that IV was at 8:47 and popping up to 9:12, then I'm interested. And the timing here, we don't know for sure if this is part of the same trade. Could be, might not be, but That IV does pop there, but it's very small premium. I like to see the premium pop or the IV pop on those premiums. So at the time, I would probably say I don't like these just because of that IV dropping there. And again, example here, just because that IV dropped, that flow ran. Massive move on that on the day. So that's kind of where it comes in, where it's just you're kind of reading that flow here. You have your rules like mine that I want to see that IV increase. I want to see that spot increase or continue to come in at the ask the entire time. So let's move up here. So just more multi-leg stuff. So these are kind of interesting here. 5,000 contracts against 552 open interest. So these are very long term. They overlap earnings. It's a horrendous spread. I wouldn't even waste my time looking at something like this. If you wanted to, obviously you could. And now you got big ask side candle here, so you don't know what's what until that open interest updates on Monday. And there's some modifications on this. So this one's kind of junky there. And with these floor trades, I always notice this with floor trades and always pay attention to it. Not all of them, but a good handful of them will typically see some modifications. Not sure why, not sure how that happens more often. I see it more often with floor trade tags versus just normal tags as well. So just kind of a little tip there to keep an eye out for. So let's continue our way up. So we were looking at the HLFs. So multi-leg, MSTR. So weekly 300 calls. So this one does get a lot of volume. Let's see how we were looking on the day. So this would have been your entry here, and massive move up on those, and then some bid side here, some more bid side down here. So that whale might have took some big profits on Friday here on something like this, and we are 55% out of the money as well. But like something like this, you would need to double check on Monday to see how that open interest carries. But let's look at that raw flow. So this one's coming in as a multi-leg, so not the best example. So it got rolled into the 300s. So they were 277 and they rolled it to the 300. So not the best example with it being multi-leg. We'll find another one. So PDD, so these are actually called out for the group, so good sign here. So catches my eye. 10,000 contracts against 324 open interest. Opening trade, end of story, can't even argue that. Big premium. Little wider bid ask spread here, and you're coming in at the ask. 13 days, so I know I have some time. I'm not a fan of swinging weeklies over the weekend just because the data is a little more aggressive. Here's your PDD. They're coming in at 1 here, and you can just scroll over that candle. It's going to tell you how many contracts are on that at that time zone. It's a 5-minute time range. How much is it at the ask, mid bid, your average fill, your total premium. So you get all that data there. And I like to click on that candle here. And again, you need to read that full flow feed here. So you can see where that so the contracts start to come in. I'm going to pop it back a page here. And sometimes when you try to go back a couple pages, it gets a little funky here. Let me remove that time filter and pop this out to 250. So we're going to come back all the way to the morning here. So this was, I think this was actually the first trade on the day here. Yeah, you didn't have any other trades of the day. So this is a little bid side before it looks like, which is gonna be difficult with us here, but you can see that IV at 31.59. Let me pop back to the candle here. Pop this here. So you see there's your size. We only had, yeah, I can't get to that flow before it's gonna keep kind of messing up there. So 31.59, IV staying up, spot coming in at the ask. Looks good there. Actually made a nice little intraday move on those, hit about 40% intraday. Looking at that net call premium, and you can always pop this out too. Like if you want to look at the last 14 days of net call premium, I usually keep it on the day and I'll pop it out. Maybe a couple 3 days just to kind of see a good view of everything. And then if you want to save these contracts as well too. So the way I track them, I keep everything in my flow here. So let me get out of there. All you have to do is come here and click on this and it's going to save to your flow and you can track it. It's only going to save that premium though, so it's going to be a little difficult to get that full premium there, so that's why it's important to kind of have that big to kind of look at that candle and keep an eye on that. So let's find another one. Lift calls. So these ones, again, kind of a mid-fill where I'm going to pass over something like this. A lot of premium though. Still can take a peek at it. So 80, just see it's up a little bit here. A lot of net call premium on the day. Let's results. So 130.06. Yeah, sometimes it just wants to be a little funky when you try to go back. There's just so much data here where it tries to track it all. So 130.06. So looking good, looking good, looking good. 81.30.06, you're staying up. So this is where I don't like that. So 9:12, you're about 15-20 seconds later. Now this just kind of comes with screen time. I would make an assumption that this is probably the same trader, and you see that IV kind of dropping here and then comes back up here again. So I mean, this is 9 a.m. and 45 seconds all the way from 9 a.m. and 12 seconds is the start. We won't know 100%, but again, screen time and just kind of reading this throughout, just spending hours on this. I mean, I've been using Unusual Whales since they kind of came out in 2020, 2021, and it's a lot of screen time and learning. It just takes time and patience. You're not going to understand it all in one sit down. It's just continue to read that flow feed and use the correct filters. So the lift ones here, again, that IV is dropping, so that's why I didn't kind of like that flow. IV is just bouncing around, comes back up. Just not the best setup. There's going to be a lot more bad flow than good flow. So, and again, just because the IV was all over 80, trading at 91 here, up about 12% on those. Let's look at these Googles. The 11.7, 292.5 calls. So smaller size here. I'm not a fan of always that smaller size on something like a Google or a SPY or something that's really highly traded, just because you can kind of get lost. This one you can obviously track a little easier. 2900 here. Kind of looking at those candles. So before it, not any major candles, but we did have some trades on Thursday here. So I want to see how Thursday looked just compared there. So probably not related. Won't for sure know, but just kind of size-wise, I would assume this is for sure going to be an ad. Or a new whale opening position 107. They kind of pop up here, 165, 135. So a lot of that volume, and just because it's the ask doesn't mean it's going to carry over, so you have to check that open interest. And that's one big misconception as well. Not all ask side flow is going to be a buy, not all bid side flow is going to be a sell. I'll do a bid side video separately from this at some point, so kind of look at that. But so just kind of, you see how it goes, and you don't see a lot of big spikes here, so we can presumably guess that this flow is going to carry over into Monday, or a big chunk of it should. Let's look at a couple more. We'll go to the new page. So then you see more MicroStrategy calls coming. So this is kind of where watching that flow feed as well helps. Like, okay, I knew there were some weekly MicroStrategies that came in a little earlier. Let's take a peek at these 76 days. I'm buying more time on here. Definitely an opening trade. 40% out of the money, a little further. And one thing that I like to do with the whales, if I'm following a whale, you don't have to follow their strike either. I'm probably going to go closer to the money or take their same strike. I'm not going to really go further out. And the yeah, the strike's the only thing you really have to kind of watch, because you can switch that chain again, like if you wanted like the 360s instead, where you have a bigger chance of maybe finishing in the money, whatever, however you want to trade it. But I would not go less days than this. If this whale's 76 days out, I'm for sure going to target that date. I want to have that same time that whale's in there. The only thing I would look to change again, that strike possibly, but it's easier just to kind of follow that whale essentially. That's not financial advice or anything, it's just easy to track it because then you can watch that chain. And you can always come up here too and create an alert here. So you just come in here and you can go to your custom alerts and do that. I'm not going to dive into that in the video, it'll be a pretty long video then. But yeah, that's one here. So like, let's look at the micro strategies, and we know those micro strategies looked kind of good, or they look good, but they were weeklies. So let's look at these. So a descending fill. I want to see where that fill is descending. So that just means that spot price is dropping. So it's dropping to 610 right here, and small IV drop. Not a lot of the premium. Looks good. Let's see if it's going to let us go for. Okay, so that was part of the first trade there. So 69.81. Let's see if it lets us back up. So yeah, you see that IV spike then. So that first one was at 69.81. And then we look at that flow, so 70.59. So an increase in that IV. You might like these, seeing a lot of net call premium on the day. Might be a good piece of flow, might not be. So U puts. These are what are catching my eye here. So big spike in that spot here. Obviously different strikes, but presumably, and again, this is with screen time, this trade's probably connected in some way. Now the only thing I don't like with this trade is I'm looking at that day's expiration. We overlap earnings. This is earnings flow. This is what I consider earnings flow because we're expiring that week of earnings. So this whale is probably betting on earnings, hedging on earnings, something. So this flow I don't even really read just because you don't know, that's the thing. So these FSLRs, let's look at these. So, okay, we're coming in almost at the ask. Clean opening trade, 0 days as well, because he's expired the 31st. Pretty good premium. Let's take a peek. So 2, and then more coming in here. So they didn't get that move. So one thing, if I'm looking at them and there's 0 days and I'm seeing a lot of net call premium and not a lot of put premium, more than likely it's probably a hedge or they're selling those puts. Let's see if we can take a peek. So when we look at these, so you see that IV spike here and the IV's rising. Now you see that IV drop here on that size. These are probably sells at the ask. You can sell premium at the ask. Let's see what is going on here. So we had 1,000 there, 859 there, plus 150. So my guess is they probably sold these at 2 and they're buying them back at 70. And you can just kind of see, trying to look at this one. So 562, so that IV is starting to decrease here now. So that is a sign of a sell here. But they are buying them back at the ask, it looks like. So that IV is going to kind of be a little jacked up there too. You just see that IV kind of dropping here at the end too. So this looks like intraday sell at 2, buy back at 70. So again, that's why not all ask side flow is going to be a buy. So you have to go into every trade. And this is something I do obviously for the group when I'm posting my flow alerts. This is what I do for option flow through the entire day. You are spending your day reading the tape. It's not just, oh, ask side, let's post it. Ask side, let's post it. No, you have to do research. So the Mara, I'm going to do a couple more. I don't want to keep the video too long for everybody. I'll try to keep doing these maybe a couple times a month. The 1121 Mara 23.5 calls. So issue right there, earnings, but this might not be earnings full because you're not expiring that week. Wider bid ask, massive size, massive premium. Let's take a peek at the time. So we're looking at 949.45. 940, 945. So small spike in that call premium, but our puts are kind of up there as well, but call volume's leading. Take a peek at this. So let's look at that flow feed. And again, even though it's not earnings flow, you do overlap earnings, so you do have to kind of keep an eye on how that will play out because the stock will move. But looking at these, so 944.13. Let's look here. Let's go to where 944 starting here. Just keeping an eye on that IV. So I'm starting to see some size and premium come in here. Spike there, kind of a spike there. 130.90, so a really big spike there on some premium there. So now this is when that flow hits that same second. So IV is increasing, very clean IV increase here. IV is continuing to increase, 132.40. So your flow looks really good there. And just that spot here, looking at that as well. I mean, you can see it increasing 76, 77, 77, 78. That's a good sign there. So again, the only earnings thing, otherwise I would say this flow does look really, really good. I would read this as a buy. Let's just do a couple more here. So Apple calls. Obviously Apple just had earnings. This is pretty long-term flow. You're coming in at the ask, good size, good premium, clean opening trade. We look at this, so 10.15, 10.20, we're looking at this in real time. So you can kind of see, and usually with this flow that's 100 days plus, you can typically find a better entry. It might run right away, but typically what I've found doing this for a while, you have this whale is long term. They probably don't care what's going to happen today or tomorrow. They're gonna their idea is a longer view on that trade. So you can typically find a better entry, and I would always go to the chart and just kind of look at the chart as well. But these, let's take a peek. So descending fill again, I want to see where it's descending. So okay, 2602 is that first premium there on it. Let's see, okay, let's come back here. So 2602 was that IV. So this one, that IV technically decreases, but we're coming in at the ask here. So now when I'm looking at this, I'm like, okay, well, maybe if I like the chart, I know this flow is there. You're 20% out of the money. Looking at next April calls, I mean, you would have time to find an entry, a better entry in my opinion, especially with that put premium up there. So let's do one more here. And you can always just check too, like if I want to see if there's any other Apple flow on the day, just come in here and search. So okay, I know we have some 27-day out ones. You can take a peek at these. So, and of course that call premium is going to stay the same there. It's live, it's for the entire chain. So all of this is coming in at once. I consider this as a block trade. I can't read how that flow is coming in before it, after it, and how that piece of that flow impacts that IV when it comes in. So to me, that's junk when I look at it. And let's do one more here. Let me find one that's not earnings. Let's take a peek. So how about we look at, no, I want to find a really good one here. Okay, let's look at these micro strategies here. Oh, that spread is just too big. Okay, I lied, sorry. Let's see. Yeah, Friday was not the best day for flow. So, okay, how about we look at these? So this is something that's going to catch my eye. The Avgo weekly puts 11.7. Your spot's coming in at the ask. Good size, clean opening trade, obviously there. So let's look at the day. So, okay, that net premium is kind of telling me a odd story here. You're getting a lot of put volume, but call premium's still up there. How do we look over the last 7 days? pretty flat here. I mean, but there's a lot of put volume picked up, so that is catching my eye there. So, and you can always come down here too, and if you scroll over, it's going to give you some more data on that. So, not a big percent. But the weekly, I like that. Anything under 10% multi-leg would catch my eye. I'm always keeping an eye on that. So 261K at 155. Let's look at the flow and see how that actually looks. Let's pop that to 250. Go back a page. Okay, let's just do this. Okay. So seeing multi-leg junk before it, kind of discount that IV because it's going to be really goofy when they're running multi-legs. So I'm going to look at that IV starting here. So spots coming at the ask, and that would be a pretty big spot increase there. 49.38. Not seeing an IV change at all, not dropping. Spots coming at the ask. I like this flow because you're getting a lot of put volume here as well, and it's a weekly. This would be something I would watch. I would potentially call it a buy at the ask. We'd have to see. That net premium is a little goofy. Well, let's see if we can just do one more. Okay, how about these VRT 182.5 11.7s will be our last one here. Wider bid-ask spread here. That spot's filling at the ask. That is a big sign to me that this is an aggressive trade since it's over the weekend. I know it's aggregated, so you can again pull that in here and just kind of take a quick look at it if you want. This is definitely an opening trade because that lock is there. So let's look at that flow feed. And this doesn't overlap earnings because earnings are in 6 days. So, okay, my eyes always kind of look at that net call premium first just to see how that's going. So at the time, I mean, premium's pretty flat here. A little more call volume. How do we look the last 7 days? So that, not really any massive spikes. And that was our big run-up day there. So these are 5% out of the money. And that's one thing you should look at, too, if they're weekly. Is how close are they to the money? So again, clean opening trade, that volume to open interest. Let's take a peek. Okay, let's come back here. We'll remove that time filter again. Let's come back down here. So, good example here. Again, you see that flow starting to come in here. This is a repeated hits flow alert. IV is increasing when it comes in. Spots coming in at the ask. Let's just follow this all the way up. 61.01. Spots coming in at the ask. So flow looks good there. I would consider these a buy at the ask. So something to keep an eye on there, especially knowing premiums are kind of flat there. Let's see how much of the percent. So 5% of the total premium there on that name. So yeah, I just kind of wanted to give everybody a little video there. So again, if you like Unusual Whales, I mean, it's a really easy platform to learn. It's just screen time. Again, some basic filters here as well. And yeah, really great platform. I mean, I've been using them since 2020, 2021, and it is a game changer. I mean, you can just pull on that flow and match it up with a chart. Really, really great tool. And very affordable too, and again, right now they are running a Halloween sale. You can save 30%, and if you're watching this past November 3rd, you can also still save 10% on any subscription as well. Everybody, have a great weekend.